Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby quarter-finals review. We have, yes, we're down to the pointy end. We had four games. We had the Crusaders versus the Highlanders, the Jaguares versus the Chiefs, the Hurricanes versus the Bulls, and then to finish us off, the Brumbies versus the Sharks. So to take you through by the way, hi, I'm Paul, guy behind DrivingMaul, your best base for rugby predictions and opinion. And to take you through all of that kind of action, I have with me the one, the only Cornflake. How you doing, sir?
Oh, big intro there. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back yet again. And welcome along, everyone, to the review for the quarterfinals. I mean, 8 teams become 4 in the weekend, don't they? And then
2 become 1? No. That's some kind of song, isn't it?
I don't know.
Some sort of love song when 2 become 1, you know? Oh, never mind.
I'm playing the young card. No, it's too far ago for me. No, don't remember. Too young. Anyway, let's move on to the rugby. Let's get what we're actually here for. Game number 1. We'll start off Friday night. Of course, the big Southern Derby, as it can be called as well. The Crusaders up against the Highlanders. And promised a bit, this one, but most people were expecting that the home team, as was the case in all these matches, would get the job done. And the Highlanders, well, they weren't the ones to let that put them off, because they got off to a good start. Nice and early. Homopo just about scoring very, very early for the Highlanders.
Whoa. Sorry. Who scored early?
If you'd let me finish there, Homopo scored early, but it was disallowed.
No. Is it Homopo or Hemopo?
Homopo.
Yes, not Homopo.
Homopo. What did you say?
Hemopo.
What did I say?
You said Homopo. I said Hemopo. Anyway, never mind, go on.
Well, moving on from Homopo. Homopo scored. He scored. It was disallowed. It was Homopo. Goodness me. What's happening tonight? It's absolute shambles already. The Highlanders were starting very well anyway, regardless. But they did score the first try. And C.O. Tompkinson. Did I get that one right? Is that all right? You happy with that? Okay. I'm going to pick on your names now in the preview for the next show. He scored the opening try of the matchup, actually. The Highlanders stole a line out, fired the ball quickly out to the left side. Rob Thompson offloaded 3 defenders on his back, and he creates an overlap nicely through Ben Smith, and then Tompkinson to finish in the corner, and the Highlanders got off to the great start that they were dreaming of. The Crusaders, though, got their line out right for once early in the stage. It took a while for them to get that going, and they moved forward to draw the Highlanders very narrow and left no defenders out wide. David Havili getting an easy run and try under the sticks for the home team. Then Offload City opened up for business as Bridge drew in 3 defenders of his own down the left-hand side. His fantastic offload to Fitu Douglas, who was quick as a flash, dishing it off to Richie Moanga to go over in the corner, and somehow, inexplicitly, running around under the sticks as well, which shouldn't have been allowed in that situation whatsoever. But the Crusaders firing back very nicely there. Ty Walden jumped in on the act for the Highlanders, hit back just before half-time, and it was a very unlikely way as well. 5-minute scrum, fired straight out to Walden, flat, and he crashes through a man who doesn't miss too many tackles in Jack Goodhue, and he stumbled his way over to make it very tight at the break, 17 points to 14. The penalty just keeping the Crusaders in the lead by a whisker. The start of the second half was a frantic start, and it was halted in its tracks pretty quickly, as probably the most controversial and decisive factor of the whole matchup happened early on, as Liam Squire was sent to the bin for a shoulder charge on the Crusaders player, and that's really put a dampener on this matchup, as well as from there on in, the Crusaders took over, and they turned to their pack as well through the line-out maul, and a bit of a tactical blunder, many would call it here, from the Highlanders defending it. Only really one man went into it for the Highlanders to defend them all, and against probably 8 or 9, 10 probably Crusaders players, he got pretty quickly squashed, and everyone just watched as he rolled over and scored a pretty, start of the end to the Highlanders as well. The yellow card period was really killing them. Another line-out maul, and this time at least they actually defended it, and they defended it pretty well, but near the sideline it broke off on the edge, and Alatoa charged over, and after the try, Liam Squire did return from there, but it was 31-14 by that point, and pretty much game over. The Crusaders set-piece gained another victim. This time it was Bridge who chipped it over the top. Banks messes up completely at the back, and Moanga stole it from his grasp and scored yet another try for the home team. It was a bit of a blowout in the end, 38 points to 14. The Crusaders taking quarterfinal number 1. But it was a bit of a dreadful second half by the visiting team. They were definitely up for it in the first, but couldn't stick with it for the full 80, could they?
No, not at all. I mean, the first half they were there or thereabouts, and we had even some really good performances in the second half as well. To be fair, I mean, Coltman his did sort of was trying to sort of win the game himself at the beginning of the second half, and then with his turnovers was great at the breakdown. For example, we had, I mean, Hemapo and Franklin both had really good first halves, but faded. And in that second half, the Highlanders really just fell to pieces, didn't they? We had swearing at the ref. They just were a mess in that second half. They lost the kind of plot, which is a real shame because it was the end of an era for this side. We've had lots and lots of players. This was their last game for the team. I mean, both Franklin, Hemapo, Squire, Ben Smith, just to name a few.
It's going to be a lot of time with new guys coming through that team, isn't it, as well in the future? But, I mean, I think they showed certainly that before that yellow card time, that the Highlanders definitely were in this match. They were good enough to take it to the Crusaders. Do you think the Crusaders have a reason to concern maybe for the future of their season? Teams may have been able to exploit or find areas to exploit that the Highlanders did pick up on in that first 40 minutes.
Well, as I say, I think it was a matter of the collective from the Crusaders against the kind of individual brilliance of certain players in that Highlanders team. We saw sort of individual players standing up at different times for the Highlanders, but the overall group of the Crusaders saw them through in the end. They didn't. I don't think they weren't the kind of same standout players, but overall they just managed to get the job done. And I mean, was it three out of the 4 tries, or it ended up being 5 tries in the end because of Moanga robbing Banks, but 3 out of those first 4 tries by the Crusaders were from line-out mauls. So you've got to say, I mean, not necessarily directly off them, but that was the basis of them all. So if you manage to keep your discipline, don't give them the penalties, don't let them kick that corner, then you're in for you got to say you're in for a good chance. So if you can maintain your discipline, you've got a good chance against them, I think, going forward. But very few sides managed to do that, have they, so far?
Yeah, you also mentioned the other man that will be departing, the iconic throw of Marty Banks will no longer be a part of the Highlanders, which is a real shame. He's a bit of a legend, so no more Marty Banks. But, I mean, I think you look back at the Highlanders season, and I don't know, from my point of view down here, you've got to say, getting to those quarterfinals, losing to what's likely to be the winners, is at least one of the favourites at least. You got to say that's a successful season for the Highlanders, wouldn't you think?
Kind of, but then the other way to look at it is that I think they had a losing or I mean, they lost about as many games as they won, really. Should they? I mean, not particularly them, but should more than half the teams be making the finals? Really, it's kind of just let's get rid of the worst play. Even if you're having an average season, you can make the finals if you're a decent side. So I mean, let's not talk about the Blues there though. But the I think this was a very average season for the Highlanders, not a good season.
Yeah, but it's the competition, isn't it? You play to the rules, and I guess that allowed them to sneak in right at the very, very end, didn't it? So, yep, could have been better, but definitely could have been a lot worse, like the Blues. But yes.
So and then tomorrow night on the Hash Rugby Chat, what we'll be doing is we'll be going through the bottom 5 teams in Super Rugby and give you our grades as to how we think they did. The week after, for next week, we'll take the middle 5, and then the final week we'll take the top 5. So the next 3 weeks, we'll give you a grading for all of the Super Rugby franchises to how well we think they did compared to sort of expectations for the season. So come and join us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. for that.
Interesting. Very interesting time. It'll be good to see what you think about the Blues. Anyway, we'll move on. Move on to what's quickly becoming everyone's nearly second favourite team and most of South America's favourite team, isn't it? With the Jaguares doing the job against the Chiefs. And it was always going to be a tough ask for the Chiefs heading over to Buenos Aires to get this job done. But, I mean, if there's a team that's hitting their straps at the right time, it was the Chiefs. But it was the best start possible you could get for the home team. Quickly off the kickoff, a bit of breakdown pressure and a turnover inside the Chiefs 22, and it was quickly spun out wide to an unlikely winger in Matera, who crashed over, and really from a very early start, erupting the home crowd into support, which is really, in a stadium like that, the last thing you want to happen as a visiting team. So they were off to a flying start. The Chiefs did strike back finally after butchering multiple chances at the line, but the Jaguars couldn't keep them out. And it was the man of the season, Brad Weber, who dummied the defence, and support from his left from Boschier, who had enough to slide in to the teams to go half-time break. From there, it was only a 2-try first half, which up that first game we just watched, it was a bit of a difference maker as well. 10 points, 8, the Chiefs actually led thanks to the penalties, and of course the conversion was a big difference over the Jaguars. But into the second half, the Jaguars set piece finally reaped some rewards for them, some patient phases, and probably what we'd call now typical Jaguars expansive play, like we've seen from this season all year long. And it's been unlike it, but throughout the season, they now look more at home, and they get that set piece going. They look like the team that get the job done. They did take almost the lead. It was 16-15. The Chiefs still had it by a whisker, but the game exploded and the pace stepped up a gear, and the Jaguars, as the game wore on, was wearing into another gear. A massive swing of momentum as the Jaguars took control of the game. Penalty put them in front, 18-16, and then they got another penalty further on in the half as well that added to the score. But they were all over that latter half of the second, and it was really the defence for the Jaguars that won them the game, and the Chiefs, error in the first half, they just couldn't put it anywhere near the bed in the second half. The Jaguars did it through penalties in the end, 21-16, getting the win over the Chiefs. An interesting game. The Chiefs certainly gave it a good stab, but not quite enough to break down that solid defence that they have there in Buenos Aires.
No, I mean, to have got to to have pulled it back, or to have got themselves back in the lead, and then to get out to 8-16, you've got to say that at that point they would be looking to push on and seal it. But maybe that travel was a bit too much. I mean, we've had a lot of players who have have sort of played extra because of injuries and all that kind of stuff in this side. So maybe, or lack of game time, maybe for some as well, really meant that maybe the Chiefs kind of ran out of steam. I think a player that will have surprised a lot of people who when he wasn't injured, had a really good season, which was Debrasini. I mean, here's a guy who couldn't get a start for the Rebels, running and cutting up teams with his occasional runs. One of those players that you're kind of renowned for his kicking and sort of distribution, and therefore people sort of drop off him thinking, hey, he doesn't run, he's not going to run. And then suddenly they leave him those gaps and off he goes. Maybe a bit... Is he? I mean, could he be the new kind of Beaver for the Chiefs? Kind of one of those, become a cult figure for the Chiefs. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh goodness me, it's a bit early to put him down that poor old path, isn't it? I mean, he's got to lose a test in Hong Kong before he gets to those sort of accolades. So it's a long way to go for old Jack. But I mean, you're right. He really did progress. The fact he didn't play much, but he did make a massive difference to that back line. And you'd even say, as a shame as it is on poor old Marty McKenzie, they did lose a lot when he come on, when Debrasini did hurt himself, some sort of injury there. We won't really know what the extent is because they're gone now. So he'll just fly under the radar with that injury, won't he? He's not going to be in any frame for anything else later on. But yeah, they made a big difference.
Well, you say that, but I'm looking forward to seeing him up playing for Northland. So I got to interview him last year when I was up there, but I forgot to hit record. So hopefully this time when I'm up there and I get to talk to him, I'll hit record and you'll be able to get to see the interview.
Hopefully. That's always the most important button to push, is that record button. A lot of talking, even in the chat for tonight's video, about Brad Weber. Surely, we've gone on all season and he's got to be into that mix for higher honours. But he showed it up, didn't he, here for the Chiefs? He really is proving to be probably the form number 9 in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fantastic player, form number 9, as you say. And... we'll get on to the Hurricanes and TJ Perinara, but yeah, a bit like TJ, lots of is very quick, runs a lot of support lines, so hence gets amongst the tries quite a lot as well. So yeah, he's more that kind of style of scrum half than the sort of Aaron Smith kind of distributing picking out players. But he's got a decent pass in him. Don't get me wrong. But he's definitely his pace really has shown. His support lines really have shown this season, which has been good. Obviously, I still don't think he'll get. He'll be on the plane to Japan, so we'll get to see him playing for Hawke's Bay this season. And hey, you never know, I might be able to get a chat to him too.
What a waste of talent that would be, eh? What a waste of talent. Well, I mean, we can't go on from this game. I was going to, but we can't go on without giving a bit of props here to the Jaguares and the Argentinian fans, and especially those players. They look it's in great form. They look in control. They look like they know how that when they can step it up again and they can change the tempo of the game, they can dictate. And they just look like quite a complete unit with the team. And you can say even in that match against the Chiefs, they really didn't fire. A lot of guys were very, very quiet. Their pack probably had the better match than their back line. And it wasn't a vintage Jaguares performance by any means, but they still got the job done, which I think will give them confidence. But to get to the semi-finals, I mean, they really look like they might be the real deal to get to the big one this season, although they will have to travel, which would be a shame. But you can't discredit this team anymore. Anyone who's a bit of a doubter, Phil Currens, wasn't it? Yeah, can go fall in the river. But these guys are the real deal.
I don't think they're very good. The pack, I mean, the scrummaging, let's be honest, isn't that wonderful. But apart from that, this is a very good side. The lineouts works really well. Their forwards are an absolute menace at the breakdown, carrying the ball, and those backs are just absolutely electric. And with a halfback combination that leads them around the pitch. So, very all-round side. I say the only chink in the armour is a scrum. I think we saw that a bit at the weekend. And coming up against the Brumbies, who are very much a forward-orientated team, it's going to be forwards against backs a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next weekend. But yeah, they fully deserve where they are. They fully deserve to have the home advantage. Doing great.
So with those two results, we had our two home teams for the semi-finals. Of course, Crusaders will be hosting and the Jaguares will be hosting. We'll move on to our next match. But before we do that, halftime team talk, Paul. What's coming up this week on the channel?
So the halftime team talk, yes. Hi, tomorrow will be the Hash Rugby chat, where we will talk. We'll be grading, starting our end of season grades for the teams. Then on Wednesday, it's the All Blacks edition, and the Super Series over in the States for the Black Ferns is kicking off. So we'll have a chat about that, and then we'll be previewing the two semi-finals on Thursday. So hopefully, I'll have Ryan for that one. And then obviously the games are both on Saturday. Now, I'll unfortunately not be doing post-match reactions. I'll see if I can get other people to step in because I will be at the GABS, which is the Great Australian Beer Spectacular. Working, unfortunately. So hopefully, a full week of stuff before we hit the weekend.
A full week at the Great Beer Extravaganza. What a name! What a name that is.
Yep.
Goodness me. Let's move on to the rugby though. Hurricanes versus the Bulls. This was semi-final number 3, and this would dictate who would play the Crusaders. So a lot at stake here, but obviously for the Bulls' stake going into this, at least they knew they wouldn't have to fly outside of New Zealand again if they did manage to pick up the win. But it never really looked on their side for most of the matchup. The Hurricanes struck first, and it was from the tee. But the Bulls hit back harder with a try, which many people wouldn't have expected going to happen. Krill picked a hole through the inexperienced midfield combo of Umanga Jensen, and he drew the pass beautifully to Warwick Gallant, who had just enough pace to elude the rapid Bowden Barrett to score the opening try of the matchup. But the Hurricanes struck straight back, and it was revenge for Umanga Jensen, who broke out wide, and with the overlap to Wes Hooson, who angles his run perfectly, and the support on the inside to TJ Perenara, who we've already talked a little bit about, to score his opening try of the matchup as well. The penalties in the first half were costing the Bulls. It allowed the Canes to get into more attacking areas, and it was fairly simple when they get the ball close to the line. Ben Lamb spots a wee half gap, and he's too big, too strong to stop, and he does the rest for their second try of the game. A quick throw from Bowden Barrett really caught the Bulls napping here. They were unprepared, and they didn't really set their line up. And a quick pick and go from substitute Royasi, who set off, pins the ears back, didn't support himself, backs his pace, and nails it to the line. Didn't look for the support outside him, just nailed it, absolutely gunned it for wheels, and to put the Canes up 24 points to 7. And at this point, many people are thinking this one could be done and dusted. We had some close ones already, but this one is blowing out quite considerably this time. But just before half-time, the Bulls did get themselves back into the game. It was a crucial time to score a try as well. Cornell Hendricks picked up the most messy pass in all of rugby, dribbling along the floor. He picks it up, flat-footed. He then puts on the step of champions to elude about 3 Canes defenders and then score it in the corner as well. No right to do it, but you can't do anything but criticise the awful defence from the Canes and the amazing talents from Cornell Hendricks that brought it right back. 24-14, the Hurricanes leading at the break, but the Bulls certainly were fighting back. The roundabouts of the rugby ball played into the Canes' hands though as the Bulls let the kick bounce, and offloading masterclass that followed from the Hurricanes was a joy to watch. Royasi getting the credit again as second of the game as he swept around from the left edge to put it closer to the sticks. The Bulls though, they struck close off the back of the scrum, but that was disallowed to Vermeulen, who was just a blade or two short of the line, and then as they spread it wide, Royasi going for the intercept, knocks the ball down, and we all know what happens when you've got an overlap, 1 defender, 2 attackers, and he hits the ball down. Yes, it was a big yellow card for him, and of course the penalty try as well. That brought the game quite nice and close, and then Cornell Hendricks brought it even closer. A crossfield kick from Pollard, and Hendricks rolls out that big old step again and leaves Geordie Barrett scrambling in the dirt as Hendricks flies over in the corner and brought it into just a 4-point game, 32-28. Penalties again were crucial. Geordie Barrett put over another one to put their lead open to 7, and everyone was getting excited about the possibilities of a draw, which didn't thankfully come about, and the final score was 35-28. Hurricanes getting it done. Not as easy as it looked though, Paul, was it? It was a bit closer, and I guess those Wellingtonians' hearts would have been a little bit in their mouth for a bit there.
No, absolutely. As you say, Hendricks, fantastic game from him out there on the wing, getting a couple of tries that he had no right to score at all. But this was a real contrast in styles because you had the Hurricanes. I'm just trying to bring up the stats at the moment. But you had the Hurricanes there basically trying to score off nearly every possession with little chips over the top and kicking it around. There was none of this kind of earning the right to go wide or trying to play territory. Lots of little kicks and dinks over, as I say. And it's an interesting style there of them trying to score off nearly every play. And it does mean that you're going to be... There's a lot of contestable kicks. A lot of the time you're not going to have the ball. And so it makes it for a long old game for you if you play that style. But hey, they worked this evening or last evening. They only had 28 kicks from hand in the end, but they were running it. They had like 7 in the first 8 minutes, and then they calmed it down a bit. But yeah, interesting from there. As I say, that a penalty try and Royasi really kind of, as Steve says in the chat there, best and worst youthful exuberance, some great attacking, some weak defending, and the shocking yellow.
He summed them up, didn't it? In a few words. Yeah, I mean, it was good. What was the best part about it, as we talked about in the post-match review of the game, was the fact that he just backed himself. No shortage of confidence to go for that line when he picked up from the back of that ruck after Barrett and Perinara had that little quick line-out play down the wing. To not slow up, not look around, just go for it. Just have a go, have a crack. And boy, he showed every inch of pace, didn't he? And he beat some quick defenders there as well. For the Bulls, I have to look at this as just about a missed opportunity for them as well. But to come to this sort of instance, to have been the dominant side, I guess, in South Africa, if you exclude the Jaguares, they've been right up there with the best of them throughout most of the season. You feel that they probably wanted to go one more?
It's a real shame. It's kind of a coming of the age season for the Bulls, and yet half the team are heading overseas, which is at the end. So history tells us that the Bulls cannot play outside of South Africa. And we saw that, we kind of got a taste of that early in the season when they went over to Argentina and lost the Jaguares after the Jaguares had lost their opening game to the Lions for the first time ever at home. So you kind of had that feeling. Then they came on tour, 2 draws, a win and a loss is fantastic return for them off 4 games. You're thinking, wow, here's a side that's really kind of, that's just got it now. and let's be wonderful to see what they do next year. Except, I say, half the team are going, and it's rebuilding time again, which is a real shame.
Yeah, when they look at this game too, they'll look back and see they were down 24 points to 7. That is a big way to be down just minutes before halftime as well. To have that ability to fight back, they did really, really well. I think they can definitely be quite proud of that performance. But like you say, next season, it's going to be an interesting one. Big loss in Pollard. Obviously, losing him has guided this team around. His reliability with the boot, not only off the tee, but out of the hand. Just the way he controls the game. And, of course, some big forwards in there that definitely do contribute well to how this team plays. So, yeah, really interesting to see how these Bulls are going to recover from that next season and try and build on that. It's going to be fairly tough for them as well. But
and you say, yeah, great character from them. 24-7 down. I think a lot of us are thinking this is going to be a thrashing. But, yeah, great characters come back and, push the Hurricanes all the way.
They did indeed, and that made the Crusaders go up against the Hurricanes, and that will be our first semi-final. No, well, technically it's our second one, isn't it? Because it'll be on Saturday night. Yes, of course. So get the Hug Warriors in their time zone. So great that they're playing on Saturday, though. Don't get me wrong there at all.
Well,
I love
they're playing
Saturday
Friday night,
games.
Which is
yes, Saturday morning. Saturday morning for me. I have to set an alarm to get up in time to watch it. But that's good.
You live in the future.
I do, indeed. But we'll move on to the Brumbies with the Sharks. Obviously, this team was going to be the decider to go and face the Hug Warriors on Friday night, as it would be in their time zone. And it was this game I can simply put down to probably 2 words that ultimately decided this matchup between the Brumbies and the Sharks. Inside balls. And that really summed up the whole entire game. That's where the first try come from, and we've seen it very early, and the trend continued. In fact, it probably only continued to halftime because they kind of put it away mostly in the second half once the game was almost done. But it was inside ball from Rory Arnold that set away the former Crusader Pete Samu on a blockbusting run minutes into the game. Great speed, and we know what he's all about, old Samu, and he got the Brumbies off to a great start. Second try, same story. Sio slips it to Banks. He slices through, and he's got support from Henry Spate, and it's 2 tries to the Brumbies. And then they thought they'll crack out the big weapon. Yep, the rolling maul come out, and then after 23 minutes, the Sharks were still to concede a maul try this season. That ended after the 23rd minute. Took a bit more than the normal maul try from the Brumbies, but Samuel at the back grabbed his second of the night. That put the teams at halftime. The Sharks only managing 2 penalties and trailed 24 points to 6. Then we say finally, the Sharks turned up. They scored a try, and the temperature at that point was the only thing lower than the Sharks' points tally. And the power from the Sharks' number 12 got them a good forward momentum, carried them over, and it took nearly an hour, but they finally got it, and they had it for a long time too. The defence was holding very, very good. The Brumbies were happy to defend, try hold them out, but ultimately they finally got some reward. The Sharks looking to make something out of the matchup, but their heart was quickly broken though as Joe Powell made something out of a little tiny amount of ball they had through that period. The Sharks really dominated possession, a little dummy off the ruck, and that really was a bit of a punch to the heart of the Sharks, who were trying to focus everything on that to get another try in the game. That was quickly snapped away from them though. And then the Sharks, their heads dropped, and that really was the killer blow for them. Another try to the Brumbies. They got control back in the game. They got a bit of ball, and Tom Banks showing another quality step and another inside ball from Lucas, and to put that one to bed, 38-13. Not too many highlights, but it was a similar story throughout, and the Sharks really not up to the task against the Brumbies.
No, not. And you've got to say, yeah, the Brumbies put this away in the first half, didn't they? Built up that lead and then let scoreboard pressure win the game for them. Because you've got to say, it's whenever you're chasing the game, which, oh, sorry, I'm not even on screen, am I? Sorry, folks, a bit of, have to shoot the producer. As soon as you're chasing the game, and as you say, what was it, 24-6, it means you can't start kicking your penalties. You can't really get the scoreboard ticking over. You've got to go for 7, so you've got to chase the game more, and that makes that makes it, I say, much harder. And you've got to say the Brumbies. A lot of people here are going to talk about, oh, it's the scrum. They're all scrum, blah 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 scrum about the Brumbies and stuff. But 13 clean breaks. That's a pretty impressive number of clean breaks, especially when you've only had 39% of possession. You've hardly had the ball, and yet you get 13 clean breaks. They did really well. Only 7 clean breaks for the Sharks, which again shows you that the tackling and the defence by the Brumbies was strong. So not only did they pull out the nice attacking moves, as you say, with those inside balls in the first half, but then they really tackled their hearts out. They tackled twice. They had twice as many tackles to make as the Sharks, but they both missed 20. So you've got to say that the Brumbies really earned this one and fully deserve to be in that quarterfinal. Be in that semi-final. And the Sharks just left it all way too little, too late.
Yeah, they had a lot of ball, didn't they? In that second half, and to score that first try took them a long time. They batted away for ages, and even when just before Powell scored that try too, they were just, it was all Sharks. It was nothing else. But they looked clueless. They really didn't look like they knew how they were going to penetrate that defence, and it was all a bit sad, really, wasn't it? When you got such a talented team, the possibilities for them were great, but they just couldn't seem to break it down. And like you said, the scoreboard pressure really took its toll, and the Brumbies knew that they could just set themselves defensively. They didn't need to force anything. As long as they made their tackles, they could get the job done. But you look at the Sharks here and you say, how did that team make the quarterfinals? Did they deserve to be there? It's a bit like when you talk about the Highlanders as well in that state. And he just snuck in that last-minute try to Lekanyuam this last weekend or weekend before, proving to be the ultimate decider between them getting there or not getting there. So they looked out of place, didn't they? They didn't look like they really were good enough to compete, playing the way they did.
Yeah, let's go. The Chiefs, with the start they had to the season, they had no right to make the finals either. I mean, they finished the season really, really well and put themselves in a great position in that quarterfinal. To be fair to them, but they really shouldn't have been in the playoffs after that kind of start to the season. The top five, I think, all deserved their places, but the next three that made the quarterfinals, it shows you that if you take more than half the teams into the finals, you're going to get some mismatches, unfortunately. And a couple of the teams I don't think deserved it.
But that did set up, of course, the Brumbies to head over to Argentina to face the Jaguares in the semi-final. Number one, Friday night. Now, I'll never forget that now. And, of course, it will be semi-final 2 will be the Crusaders hosting the Hurricanes, which, I don't know, sets up a fairly mouth-watering prospect of a Saturday of rugby, wouldn't you say?
It does, absolutely. I mean, I'll be previewing the games on Thursday with Ryan, but before we even see the sides, let's be honest, we know that the Jaguares versus the Brumbies is really... we expect the Brumbies to have the upper hand, especially in the scrum, in the forwards there, but in the backs, the Jaguares will have the upper hand. So it's going to be really interesting to see sort of front forwards against backs in that game. And then the Crusaders versus the Hurricanes, basically, can we have enough moments of brilliance from the players like TJ, Bowden, Ardy Surveyor to get past the combined, just the machine that is the Crusaders? Because as we said against the Highlanders, it was more a collective effort. And I think we're going to need moments of brilliance from those three players, especially. And maybe also that a person that a lot of us thought should be in the All Blacks, but is having a really quiet season, is Laumape. Could this be the game that he suddenly breaks out and shows us what he's capable of?
We'll all find out, of course, on Saturday, the whole Saturday, Friday and Saturday nights, of course. Big games, of course. A place in the final is at stake. Of course, if the Crusaders do win, they'll be hosting it as well, won't they? So there's a lot on the line for them. But I think big decider, Brumbies, Jaguares game, home crowd. That's going to be massive. Crusaders might not have that same luxury, because will you get a lot of Wellingtonians travelling south to the match in Christchurch would be a question mark. Hardcore fans, who knows? It's only a small stadium, though, so they have to get their tickets in pretty quickly if they want to get there. But definitely, you're not going to see many Australians going over to Buenos Aires to support the Brumbies over there. So, I mean, they can hardly get a crowd themselves to their own games. So, yeah, that's going to be a big decisive factor for me. Big games coming up this weekend, so we can't wait to get those underway. Place in the final up for grabs, and that does wrap us up for the preview of the quarterfinals. 4 good matches, though. I'm not gonna lie. They were quite exciting.
Oh, it was a really good weekend of rugby, and yeah, really enjoyed it. So, thank you very much, Stephen. Steve, sorry. Don't forget to go over and have a look at the Cornflakes, the Cornflakes channel, for all your best place for rugby gaming around. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Wednesday night at 8 p.m. and Thursday night at 8 p.m. So don't miss any of that.